History books often paint a picture of Africa as a continent waiting to be discovered and civilized by Europe. But what if I told you that story is fundamentally wrong? What if the reality is that for centuries, even millennia, African societies were hubs of innovation, pioneering technologies that Europe would only stumble upon much, much later? Today, we're peeling back the layers of a deliberately obscured history to reveal the incredible technological achievements of ancient Africa. This isn't just about setting the record straight. It's about giving credit where it is long overdue. Let's start with something truly groundbreaking: steel production. In Europe, the Industrial Revolution of the 18th century is hailed as the birth of modern steel making. But travel back in time, over 2,000 years, to the shores of Lake Victoria in modern-day Tanzania. Here, the Haya people were already mastering a highly advanced method of producing carbon steel. Archaeologists have unearthed furnaces dating back to at least 500 BC that were operating at temperatures between 1,800 and 2,000 degrees Celsius. To put that into perspective, that's hotter than any European furnace could achieve until the mid-19th century. This wasn't just basic blacksmithing. The Haya had perfected a preheating technique, using the swamp reeds and scorched earth of the region to force air into their furnaces, which created a blast of superheated oxygen. This allowed them to smelt iron ore and infuse it with the right amount of carbon to create high-quality steel. It was a sophisticated, energy-efficient process that produced steel so superior it was a prized commodity across the continent. So, when European explorers arrived and saw this technology, they didn't recognize it for what it was: a process far ahead of their own. Instead, it was dismissed. The discovery of efficient steel production belonged to Europe, or so the story went. Now let's move from industry to medicine. Ever had a C-section, or know someone who has? This life-saving surgical procedure is often presented as a modern medical miracle. Yet, in the 19th century, European doctors journeying through the Great Lakes region of Africa, specifically in what is now Uganda, witnessed something that defied their understanding. They documented Banyoro surgeons performing successful caesarean sections with an astonishingly high survival rate for both mother and child. Think about this. At the time, a C-section in Europe was practically a death sentence for the mother. So how did they do it? The Banyoro surgeons used specialized tools, sterilized with heat and alcohol. They used banana wine as both an antiseptic to clean the wound and a mild anesthetic for the patient. They meticulously stitched the layers of the uterus and the abdominal wall back together using iron needles. And their post-operative care, which involved keeping the wound clean and the patient well-nourished, was exceptional. When a British doctor named Robert Felkin published his detailed observations in 1884, the European medical community was largely skeptical, if not outright dismissive. They couldn't accept that an African society, without the benefits of Western medicine, could have mastered such a complex surgical procedure. It was simply easier to ignore the evidence than to rewrite their own history of medicine. Let's talk about cities and structures. When you think of ancient urban planning, you probably think of Rome or Athens, but have you ever heard of Benin City? In its heyday, from the 13th to the 17th century, Benin City, located in modern-day Nigeria, was one of the most impressive urban centers in the world. Portuguese traders who arrived in the 15th century were left speechless. They described a massive city protected by a complex system of walls and moats that stretched for thousands of kilometers. In fact, the 1974 Guinness Book of World Records described the walls of Benin as the world's largest earthwork carried out prior to the mechanical era. The city itself was a marvel of design. It had a sophisticated grid layout with wide, straight streets, some of which were even lit at night by large palm oil lamps. The royal palace was an enormous compound with countless courtyards and galleries, adorned with magnificent bronze plaques that chronicled the kingdom's history. The level of organization required to build and maintain such a city, from sanitation to public works to defense, was immense. Yet after the British punitive expedition of 1897, which saw the city looted and burned, its history was largely erased and its architectural genius forgotten. Instead, the narrative became one of a primitive kingdom that needed to be brought into the modern world. And what about mathematics? The very foundation of our digital world. The oldest known mathematical object in human history is the Lubombo bone, found in the Lubombo Mountains of Eswatini. It's a baboon fibula with 29 distinct notches, dated to around 43,000 years ago. Many scholars believe it was a lunar calendar used to track menstrual cycles, making it a tool created and likely used by women. Even older is the Ishango bone, discovered in the Democratic Republic of Congo, dated to about 20,000 years ago. This bone features a series of notches carved in groups, which appear to show an understanding of prime numbers and multiplication by 2. This is tens of thousands of years before the Babylonians or Greeks began their mathematical explorations. These discoveries challenge the entire timeline of intellectual development. They suggest that the fundamental concepts of counting, sequencing, and even abstract mathematical thought didn't originate in Mesopotamia or Egypt, as is commonly taught, but deep within the African continent. It's a testament to an ancient intellectual tradition that has been systematically overlooked. These weren't just random scratches. They were the dawn of data, the first time humans recorded and processed numerical information. Let's also consider the realm of astronomy. In northwestern Kenya, on the edge of Lake Turkana, stands a site called Namuratunga. It's a megalithic site consisting of 19 basalt pillars, aligned with specific stars and constellations that were used by ancient Cushitic people to calculate a highly accurate 354-day lunar calendar. This calendar was crucial for them to predict seasonal rains and manage their pastoral economy. This complex astronomical observatory dates back to around 300 BC. Meanwhile, the Dogon people of Mali have a traditional astronomical knowledge that is simply baffling. For centuries, they have known about the star Sirius and its tiny, invisible companion, Sirius B. They knew it was incredibly dense and that it had a 50-year orbital period around Sirius A. How did they know this? Sirius B is completely invisible to the naked eye and wasn't even photographed by Western astronomers until 1970. The Dogon's knowledge, passed down through oral tradition, was recorded by French anthropologists in the 1930s, long before modern science could confirm it. While some have tried to explain this away as a coincidence or contamination from modern sources, the depth and specificity of the Dogon cosmology suggest an ancient and profound understanding of the heavens, one that we are still struggling to fully comprehend. The list goes on and on. From the incredible acoustics and engineering of the Great Zimbabwe Stone Enclosures to the complex inoculation techniques against smallpox practiced in various parts of West Africa long before Edward Jenner. In case after case, African innovation was either ignored, misunderstood, or appropriated. The narrative was controlled by those who held the power to write history, and they wrote a version that placed themselves at the center of all progress. They called it discovery, when they finally caught up to technologies and knowledge that had existed in Africa for centuries. So why does this matter today? It matters because these historical inaccuracies have real-world consequences. They have fueled centuries of prejudice and perpetuated the myth of a dark continent. Reclaiming this history is not about diminishing the achievements of other cultures. It's about creating a more complete and truthful picture of our shared human story. It's about recognizing that ingenuity and brilliance are not confined to one continent or one race. They are universal. The story of Africa is not one of helplessness, but of resilience, creativity, and profound intellectual achievement against all odds. It's a legacy of innovation that continues to this day, as a new generation of African inventors and thinkers are building on this incredible heritage to shape the future. We've only scratched the surface of this vast and fascinating history. There are so many more stories of African ingenuity waiting to be told. If you found this journey into the past as eye-opening as I did, and you want to continue challenging the narratives we've been taught, make sure to hit that subscribe button. We have a lot more history to uncover together. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.